The war ended not with a final battle, but with a message that shocked the entire galaxy. The Galactic Conclave, those 17 ancient species who had ruled the stars since before humanity's ancestors had learned to walk upright, had requested terms of surrender. It was the first time in 12,000 years that the elder races had admitted defeat, and the news spread like wildfire through every corner of known space. Ambassador Elena Vasquez returned to the same diplomatic vessel where she had delivered her warning 18 months earlier. She walked the familiar corridors with heavy steps, thinking about everything that had happened since that first meeting. So many lives lost, so many families destroyed, so much pain that could have been avoided if only the Conclave had listened. The greeting chamber looked exactly as she remembered it, but something had changed. When the Vethkai High Arbiter entered the room, his crystalline form had been reconfigured into a lower position, a gesture of submission that his species had not performed in over 9,000 years. Elena stared at the alien who had once looked down at her with such contempt. Now he could barely meet her eyes. "Ambassador Vasquez," the Arbiter began, his voice lacking the arrogance that had filled it during their first meeting. "We have come to discuss terms for ending this conflict. The Conclave is prepared to make significant concessions in exchange for peace." Elena nodded slowly, her expression revealing nothing of the emotions churning beneath the surface. "Before we begin, I want you to understand something. I did not want this war. I warned you what would happen if you attacked us. I begged you to turn your ships around and leave us alone. Do you remember what you said to me?" The Arbiter's form flickered with what might have been shame. "I told you that your warning would be archived with all the other empty threats from doomed species. I was arrogant and foolish, and my people have paid a terrible price for my mistakes. 67 million of your soldiers are dead," Elena said quietly. 432 of your ships have been destroyed. Your economy has collapsed. Your supply lines are in ruins, and your people live in fear of human fleets appearing in their skies. Was it worth it, Arbiter? Was teaching us a lesson worth all of that? The alien had no answer. Elena reached into her pocket and pulled out a small data device. "These are humanity's terms for ending the war. They are not negotiable, but I think you will find them more generous than you deserve." The Arbiter took the device with trembling hands and read the terms displayed on its screen. As he read, his crystalline form began to pulse with an emotion that Elena recognized as disbelief. "You want recognition as equals in galactic society," the Arbiter said slowly. "You want the right to expand freely without Conclave permission. You want the release of all human prisoners. And that is all. You do not want territory. You do not want reparations. You do not want to dismantle the Conclave or punish the species who attacked you." "That is correct," Elena replied. "I do not understand," the Arbiter admitted. "You have won this war. You have proven that you are more powerful than we ever imagined. Why do you not demand more? Any other species in your position would seek to dominate us, to make us pay for what we did." Elena was silent for a long moment, gathering her thoughts before responding. "Do you know what I see when I look at you, Arbiter? I see a species that made a terrible mistake, but I also see a species that could be a valuable partner in the future. We did not fight this war because we wanted to conquer the galaxy. We fought because you gave us no other choice." She took a step closer to the towering alien. "Humanity has spent its entire existence learning to kill. Every predator, every plague, every enemy that threatened us, we overcame by becoming more dangerous than they were. We did not want to bring that to the stars. We wanted to explore, to learn, to find other species who might become our friends. You forced us to become warriors instead of explorers, and we are not happy about that." The Arbiter stared at her with something that might have been wonder. "You are showing us mercy. After everything we did to your people, you are choosing not to destroy us. Why? What could possibly motivate such restraint? Elena smiled, and there was genuine warmth in her expression despite everything. Because we have already destroyed enough. On Earth, we spent thousands of years killing each other over land, over resources, over ideas. We nearly wiped ourselves out more than once. We learned, eventually, that vengeance feels good in the moment, but creates nothing but more suffering in the long term. She placed her hand on the Arbiter's crystalline surface, a gesture of connection that surprised them both. We are offering you a chance to start over. We are offering you the opportunity to know us as partners instead of enemies. If you accept our terms and treat us with the respect we deserve, you will find that humans can be the most loyal friends in the galaxy. We protect those we care about with the same ferocity that we use to destroy those who threaten us. The Arbiter considered her words for a long time, his form shifting through colors that Elena could not interpret. Finally, he spoke in a voice filled with emotion she had never heard from one of his species. I accept your terms, Ambassador. The Conclave will recognize humanity as equals, and we will work to build a relationship based on mutual respect. But I must ask you one final question, if you will permit it. Ask, Elena said. What are you? The Arbiter whispered. In all my years, I have never encountered a species like yours. You fight with the fury of demons, but you offer mercy like saints. You prepare for war while hoping for peace. You could destroy us, but you choose not to. What kind of beings are you? Elena's smile faded, replaced by an expression of ancient weariness. We are what happens when a species evolves on a world that is constantly trying to kill it. We are the children of ice ages and mass extinctions. We are the descendants of those who refused to die, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. We learned to fight before we learned to talk, and we have been fighting ever since. She turned toward the viewport, looking out at the stars that had witnessed so much bloodshed. But we also learned something else along the way. We learned that the greatest strength is not the ability to destroy. It is the ability to choose not to destroy. We could have ended your civilization, Arbiter, but that would have made us no better than you were when you attacked us. She looked back at the alien one last time. We are humanity. We are the survivors, the fighters, the stubborn species that refuse to stay in its place. And now you understand why the universe should be grateful that we believe in mercy, because if we did not, you would not be alive to have this conversation. The Arbiter watched her leave the chamber, and for the first time in his ancient existence, he felt something he had only read about in the records of species that no longer existed. He felt fear, true and absolute fear, mixed with something that might have been respect. The war was over, and a new age had begun. The Conclave would never again underestimate the young species from the small blue world. They would remember the lesson that humanity had taught them, written in fire and blood across the stars. They would remember that some warning should never be dismissed. 6 months into the war, and everything the Conclave believed about young species had been proven wrong. The combined alien armada had expected a decisive battle, a single great clash that would determine the fate of humanity. Instead, they found themselves fighting shadows and ghosts, an enemy that refused to stay in one place long enough to be destroyed. Admiral Tanaka had studied every war in human history, and she had learned one simple truth: never fight fair. Fairness was for sports and games, not for survival. When your enemy was bigger and stronger, you did not meet them head-on. You hit them where they were weak, you ran when they were strong, and you never ever gave them the clean victory they wanted. The human fleet used tactics that the Conclave had never seen before. Ships would appear behind enemy lines, unleash devastating attacks, and vanish into faster-than-light before the aliens could respond. Supply convoys were ambushed and destroyed. Scout vessels were captured, and their crews interrogated for valuable intelligence. The elder species had always fought their wars with honor and tradition. There were rules about how battles should be conducted, protocols that both sides followed. But humanity had no interest in rules or protocols. They were fighting for their survival, and they would use every dirty trick they had ever invented. The turning point came in a nebula rich with volatile gases, a beautiful cloud of color that hid deadly secrets within its heart. Tanaka had led the alien armada there deliberately, letting them think they were chasing a retreating enemy. In truth, she had been setting a trap. "All ships, this is the Admiral," she broadcast to her fleet. "Execute Operation Firestorm on my mark. May whatever gods you believe in have mercy on our enemies, because we will not." The signal went out, and 300 nuclear devices that human engineers had secretly placed throughout the nebula detonated simultaneously. The volatile gases ignited in a chain reaction that turned the entire region into a hell of fire and radiation. 800 Conclave warships were caught in the inferno. Their shields, designed to stop directed energy weapons and missiles, could not protect them from a firestorm that surrounded them on all sides. Crews burned alive as their hulls melted around them. Ammunition magazines cooked off, adding their explosions to the chaos. Escape pods launched into the flames and were consumed before they could travel more than a few kilometers. The survivors limped back to Conclave space with tales of human ferocity that sounded more like myths than battle reports. They spoke of an enemy that sang songs as they died, that laughed in the face of overwhelming odds, that treated war not as a necessary evil, but as an art form perfected over millennia of conflict. The Conclave High Command received these reports with growing alarm. This was not supposed to happen. Young species were supposed to be weak, frightened, easy to control. But humanity was proving to be something entirely different, something that the elder races had never encountered before. Then came the counterattack that changed everything. Human fleets bypassed the remaining Conclave defenses entirely, using routes through uncharted space that no one had thought to guard. They appeared without warning in orbit above the Vethkai homeworld, the heart of the most powerful species in the Conclave. The High Arbiter received the news while meeting with other Conclave leaders. For the first time in his ancient existence, he felt something that might have been panic rising in his crystalline form. "How many ships?" he demanded. "How many humans are in our space?" The answer was terrifying. Over 500 human warships hung in orbit above his world, their weapons pointed at cities that had stood for millions of years. The planetary defense grid, which had never been tested in actual combat, was being dismantled piece by precision strikes that avoided civilian casualties but made the message absolutely clear. Admiral Tanaka's face appeared on view screens across the entire planet, her expression calm and cold as she delivered humanity's response to the massacre at New Helsinki. "People of the Vethkai homeworld, this is Admiral Yuki Tanaka of the United Earth Fleet. 6 months ago, your government killed 4,000 innocent humans to make a point. Today, we are making ours." She paused, letting her words translate into every alien language. "We could destroy your cities right now. We could burn your world the way you wanted to burn ours. We have the power to end your civilization in a single hour, and there is nothing you could do to stop us." Fear spread through the alien population like a disease. Mothers clutched their children close. Soldiers stared at the sky with helpless rage. Leaders who had never known defeat realized that they were utterly at the mercy of an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. But then, Tanaka said something that no one expected. "We will not destroy you today. Your world will not be harmed. We are not here to commit genocide. We are here to deliver a message." The view screens showed the human fleet beginning to withdraw, their weapons powering down as they moved away from the planet. "The message is this: we can return at any moment. Your fleets cannot stop us. Your defenses are meaningless against us. You exist now only because we choose to let you exist. Remember that when you are deciding how this war should end." The fleet jumped away without firing a single shot at the surface below. The psychological impact was devastating beyond anything the humans could have planned. For 12,000 years, the Conclave had been the most powerful force in the galaxy. They had crushed rebellions, ended civilizations, shaped the destiny of entire species. No one had ever threatened them in their own homes. But now, for the first time in all those centuries, the elder races knew what it felt like to be helpless. They understood what the younger species experienced when Conclave fleets appeared in their skies. They felt the cold terror of realizing that their fate was in someone else's hands. Emergency meetings were called across Conclave space as leaders debated what to do. Some demanded a full military response, throwing every remaining ship at the human menace. Others argued for immediate surrender before humanity decided to finish what they had started. The High Arbiter sat alone in his chambers, replaying the recording of Admiral Tanaka's message over and over. The human female had been so calm, so controlled, even as she held the fate of his entire species in her hands. There had been no gloating, no pleasure in her eyes, just cold determination and absolute confidence. He thought back to the warning that Ambassador Vasquez had given before the war began. She had told him about the sleeping dog, about the danger of awakening humanity's wrath. He had dismissed her words as primitive bluster, the desperate threat of a species that did not know its place. Now he understood how wrong he had been. The humans were not primitives. They were survivors, shaped by millions of years of evolution on a world that was constantly trying to kill them. They had fought their way to the top of their food chain through nothing but determination and ruthlessness, and they had brought those same qualities to the stars. The Conclave had awakened something terrible, and now they were going to pay the price. A message arrived from the human government, transmitted through diplomatic channels that no one had thought were still open. It contained terms for ending the war, terms that were surprisingly gentle, considering the position of strength humanity now held. The High Arbiter read the message with trembling hands and began to draft his response. The first lesson came within 72 hours, and it was written in fire and blood across the void of space. Admiral Kethvorin had expected the humans to cower after his demonstration strike. Instead, they came at him with a fury that defied all logic and reason. His 300 warships found themselves facing an enemy that refused to follow the rules of civilized warfare. Human vessels appeared from directions that should have been impossible, using their faster-than-light drives in ways that Conclave scientists had always considered too dangerous. They made tiny jumps inside the battle zone itself, vanishing and reappearing like ghosts, striking from behind before the alien gunners could turn their weapons around. The Conclave had developed their combat tactics over thousands of years, and those tactics were based on one simple assumption, that all species wanted to survive. You attacked the enemy retreated to preserve their ships, and eventually a winner emerged through attrition. It was clean, logical, and predictable. But humans did not retreat when they were outgunned. They accelerated toward the enemy instead. Kethvorin watched in horror as a damaged human cruiser, its hull torn open and its engines failing, turned directly toward his flagship. The crew had every opportunity to escape, every chance to save themselves, but instead they pushed their dying ship forward with everything they had. The cruiser slammed into the side of a Conclave battleship at full speed, and both vessels disappeared in a ball of nuclear fire. 3,000 alien soldiers died in that moment, killed by humans who had chosen death over surrender. It was not an isolated incident. Across the battlefield, human crews were doing the same thing. Pilots ejected from their ships only to detonate antimatter charges they had strapped to their own escape pods. Gunners kept firing, even as their compartments filled with toxic atmosphere. Captains rammed their broken vessels into enemy formations rather than allow themselves to be captured. The Conclave had never fought an enemy like this, an enemy that did not fear death, an enemy that seemed to welcome the chance to take their enemies with them into the darkness. Kefvorn sent a message to his remaining captains. All ships maintain distance from the human vessels. Do not allow them to close to ramming range. Use long-range bombardment only. But the humans had an answer for that too. They launched swarms of drones that multiplied like a disease, each one splitting into smaller units that overwhelmed the Conclave's point defense systems. For every drone destroyed, 3 more took its place. For every missile intercepted, 5 more slipped through. The Vethkai admiral had started the battle with 300 warships. Within 1 week, he had only 47 left. He sent a desperate transmission to Conclave High Command, requesting immediate reinforcements. His report contained a warning that would later be studied in alien war academies for centuries to come. They do not fight to survive, Kefvorn wrote. They fight to ensure that we do not. Their tactics make no logical sense because they are not based on logic. They are based on hatred, on rage, on a desire to make us pay for every drop of blood we have spilled. I have fought rebellions for 300 years, and I have never seen anything like this. Send help immediately, or this fleet will cease to exist. The Conclave responded by deploying the combined fleets of 6 member species. Surely, they reasoned, superior numbers would succeed where individual efforts had failed. Over 2,000 warships gathered at the edge of human space, ready to crush this impudent young species once and for all. But while the alien armada assembled, humanity was not sitting idle. Human infiltration teams that had been embedded in Conclave space for decades activated simultaneously across 1,000 worlds. These were spies who had lived among the aliens for years, learning their languages, their customs, their weaknesses. They had smiled and nodded and pretended to be harmless visitors while mapping every critical installation in enemy territory. Shipyards that had taken centuries to build suffered catastrophic failures as hidden explosives detonated in their power cores. Supply convoys vanished without a trace, their crews finding their navigation systems corrupted and their destinations changed to the hearts of stars. Communication relays that connected the Conclave's vast empire went dark one by one, leaving entire sectors isolated and confused. The elder species had never considered the possibility that humans might have been preparing for this war since first contact. They had seen the smiling diplomats and the friendly traders and assumed that was all there was to humanity. They had never looked deeper, never imagined that behind those smiles lay a species that trusted no one and prepared for everything. On the colony of New Helsinki, Governor Chun watched the reports coming in from across the galaxy and felt a mixture of pride and sorrow. The human counterattack was working better than anyone had hoped, but every victory came at a terrible cost. Young men and women were dying by the thousands, sacrificing themselves to buy time for the main fleet to assemble. Families were being torn apart as soldiers said goodbye to loved ones they might never see again. Children were growing up in underground bunkers, their lullabies interrupted by the distant thunder of orbital bombardments. But the humans did not stop because stopping meant extinction. The Conclave had made their intentions clear when they killed 4,000 civilians as a warning. If humanity lost this war, there would be no second chances, no mercy, no survival. Admiral Yuki Tanaka took command of the United Human Fleet as it prepared to face the alien armada. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for ruthless efficiency. Her crews called her the Ice Queen behind her back, but they also knew that she would never ask them to do anything she would not do herself. "Listen carefully," she said to her assembled captains, her voice calm and cold. "The enemy outnumbers us by a significant margin, and they have technology that is thousands of years more advanced than ours. On paper, we should lose this battle badly." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "But we are not fighting on paper. We are fighting in the void, where numbers mean nothing and technology is only as good as the people using it. We have something the Conclave does not have, something they cannot understand or replicate." "What is that, Admiral?" one of her captains asked. Tanaka smiled, and there was something terrifying in that expression. "We have 10,000 years of practice killing things that are bigger and stronger than us. We have a history written in the blood of every predator, every plague, every enemy that ever threatened our survival. We are the children of extinction events, and we are very, very hard to kill." She turned to the view screen, where the lights of the alien armada glittered like a field of deadly stars. "The Conclave thinks this war will be easy. They think we will break and surrender like every other species they have conquered. Today, we are going to teach them how wrong they are." The human fleet moved forward, and the final battle of the first phase of the war began. It would not go the way the Conclave expected. Admiral Kethvoran stood on the command deck of his flagship, watching the blue and green world of New Helsinki grow larger on the view screen. He had commanded Conclave fleets for over 300 years, and in all that time, he had never failed to bring a rebellious species to heel. 300 warships followed his vessel through the void of space, each one carrying enough firepower to turn a continent into glass. It was more than enough to handle a single human colony, but the Conclave believed in overwhelming force, because overwhelming force meant quick victories and minimal losses. The colony below held 800,000 humans, making it the largest settlement outside of Earth itself. Families had built homes there, children had been born there, and dreams of a new future had taken root in the alien soil. None of that mattered to Kethvoran, because the Conclave had given their judgment, and he was the instrument of their will. Governor Marcus Chen received the transmission from the adjudication fleet while sitting in his office, surrounded by reports about the failed diplomatic mission. He was an older man with kind eyes and steady hands, but right now those hands were trembling as he read the terms of surrender. The aliens wanted everything. They wanted the colonists to abandon their homes and return to Earth like criminals. They wanted the ships that had brought them here to be destroyed. They wanted 5 centuries of submission to alien masters who saw humanity as nothing more than misbehaving children. Marcus had fought in 3 wars during his time in the Earth Defense Force. He had lost friends and family to violence, and he had hoped that coming to the stars would mean a fresh start for his people. But now, looking at the alien demands, he understood that some things never changed. He pressed a button on his desk and spoke to his assistant. "Begin evacuation to the deep shelters immediately. I want every civilian underground within 2 hours." "Governor," his assistant replied, her voice uncertain, "the aliens will see what we are doing. They might take it as an act of defiance." "That is exactly what it is," Marcus said quietly. "Tell the people to move fast and stay calm. We trained for this day, even though we prayed it would never come." Across the colony, sirens began to wail as hundreds of thousands of people made their way to underground bunkers that had been built in secret over the past decade. The Conclave scanners had never detected these shelters, because human engineers had designed them specifically to avoid alien detection methods. Admiral Kethvoran watched the population movements with growing irritation. The humans were supposed to be gathering in public spaces, ready to surrender peacefully, but instead they were scattering like prey animals running from a predator. He opened a communication channel to the colony. "Governor of New Helsinki, you are delaying the inevitable. Order your people to stop this foolishness and accept the Conclave's judgment. Resistance will only bring suffering." Marcus Chen appeared on the view screen, his expression calm despite the chaos happening around him. "Admiral, I am going to give you the same chance that Ambassador Vasquez gave your Arbiter. Turn your ships around and leave this system. If you do that, no one needs to get hurt today." Kethvorn's crystalline form pulsed with anger. In 300 years, no one had ever spoken to him this way. "You dare threaten me, human? Look at your world. Look at my fleet. You have no ships, no weapons, nothing that could possibly stand against us. What do you think you can do?" "I think you should take my offer," Marcus replied. "I think you should remember what your people were told. And I think you should ask yourself if conquering one small colony is worth the price you might have to pay." The Admiral's response was immediate and brutal. He ordered a demonstration strike on the colony's capital district, a precision bombardment designed to show the humans what defiance would cost them. Beams of burning light fell from the sky, and in an instant, 3 city blocks ceased to exist. 4,000 human beings died in that moment. Their bodies turned to ash before they could even scream. It was a small price by Conclave standards, a gentle reminder of who held the power in this situation. Kethvorn expected the humans to break after seeing such destruction. Every other species had broken when faced with the Conclave's might. But when Governor Chun appeared on the view screen again, his face was not filled with fear or despair. It was filled with cold, terrible rage. "You just made the worst mistake of your very long life," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You killed 4,000 of my people to teach us a lesson. Now we are going to teach you one." He reached for something off-screen, and suddenly, every communication channel in the system filled with a single transmission. It was a pulse of energy that moved faster than light, reaching every human settlement, every hidden outpost, every ship in the darkness between stars. The message contained only 2 words, "Broken Arrow." Kethvorn did not know what those words meant, but he would learn very soon. Across human space, the masks came off and the disguises fell away. Civilian freighters that had traveled conclave space for years suddenly revealed hidden weapon bays filled with missiles and railguns. Mining stations in distant asteroid belts transformed into fortress platforms bristling with defense systems. Research vessels became electronic warfare ships capable of turning enemy sensors into useless static. And from the depths of the Sol system, from hidden bases carved into asteroids and moons, ships emerged that humanity had never told anyone about. They were warships built in secret, armed with weapons that human scientists had developed specifically for this day. They were the children of paranoia and preparation, and they were hungry for battle. The Conclave had spent 60 years studying humanity, and they believed they knew everything about the young species. They knew the size of the human fleet, the capabilities of human weapons, the limits of human technology. They knew nothing at all. Ambassador Vasquez had tried to warn them. She had told them about humanity's history of violence, about the sleeping dog that should not be awakened. But the Conclave had dismissed her words as the empty bluster of a primitive species. Now they would learn the truth. Admiral Kethvorn received reports from across Conclave space as human sleeper agents activated simultaneously. 17 critical shipyards suffered catastrophic accidents that destroyed years of construction. Supply depots exploded without warning. Communication relays went dark, cutting off entire sectors from the central command. The humans had been preparing for this war since the moment they first detected the Conclave watching them. They had smiled and played the role of harmless newcomers while building an army in the shadows. They had sent diplomats to talk peace while soldiers prepared for war. It was a level of deception that the Conclave had never imagined possible. Young species were supposed to be naive, trusting, easy to manipulate. But humanity had learned long ago that trust was a luxury they could not afford. On New Helsinki, Governor Chan watched the chaos spreading across alien space and allowed himself a grim smile. The cost had been terrible. 4,000 innocent lives lost to alien arrogance, but their sacrifice would not be forgotten. He opened a channel to the hidden human fleet and spoke words that would echo through history. All ships, all stations, this is Governor Marcus Chun of New Helsinki. The enemy has drawn first blood, and now we answer. Show them what humanity is capable of. Show them why they should have listened to the warning. The war had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Conclave had ruled the stars for 12,000 years, and in all that time, they had never once been wrong about a younger species. At least, that is what they believed with absolute certainty. 17 ancient races made up this mighty council, each one older than human civilization by millions of years. And together they decided which species could travel among the stars, and which ones would remain trapped on their homeworlds forever. It was a system that had worked without failure since before Earth's dinosaurs had gone extinct, and the elder species saw no reason to change it now or ever. When their long-range sensors detected strange energy signatures coming from a small blue planet in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy, the Conclave did what they always did. They sent a fleet to investigate and deliver judgment, because that was the way things had always been done, and young species needed to learn their place in the cosmic order. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the greeting chamber of the human diplomatic vessel Horizon's Edge, waiting for the alien delegates to arrive. She was a tall woman with gray streaks in her dark hair and eyes that had seen too many difficult negotiations. But nothing in her long career had prepared her for what she was about to face. The door opened with a soft hiss, and the Conclave's representatives entered the room. The sight of them made Elena's breath catch in her throat, though she refused to show any fear on her face. The Vethkai High Arbiter stood nearly 3 meters tall, its body made of what appeared to be living crystal that shifted and reformed with every movement. Light bent strangely around its form, and when it spoke, the sound seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You are the speaker for the species called human," the Arbiter stated, and it was not a question but a declaration of fact. "We've observed your kind for 60 of your years, and we have reached our decision regarding your future." Elena nodded slowly, keeping her hands clasped behind her back. "I am Ambassador Elena Vasquez, and I speak for the United Earth Government. We welcome this opportunity for dialogue between our peoples." The Arbiter made a sound that might have been laughter, though it held no warmth or humor. "There will be no dialogue, human speaker. The Conclave does not negotiate with species that have violated the fundamental laws of galactic civilization." "And what laws have we broken?" Elena asked, her voice steady despite the cold weight settling in her stomach. "You have developed faster-than-light travel without authorization," the Arbiter replied. "You have established colonies beyond your homeworld without permission. You have built warships and weapons that threaten the stability of this region of space. These are crimes against the natural order, and they cannot be allowed to continue." Elena listened as the Arbiter laid out the Conclave sentence. Earth would be placed under permanent quarantine, with no ships allowed to leave or enter the solar system. All human colonies would be evacuated, and their populations returned to Earth. The human fleet would be dismantled, its technology confiscated, and humanity would remain under Conclave supervision for the next 500 years. Until they had proven themselves worthy of limited expansion rights. It was not a negotiation. It was a death sentence for everything humanity had worked to build. When the Arbiter finished speaking, silence filled the chamber. The alien clearly expected Elena to bow her head and accept these terms, because that is what every other young species had done when faced with the Conclave's judgment. But Elena Vasquez was human, and humans had never been good at accepting their fate quietly. "I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say," Elena began, and something in her tone made the Arbiter's crystalline form grow still. "On Earth, we have a saying, 'Let sleeping dogs lie.' Do you understand what that means?" "We are familiar with your primitive communication patterns," the Arbiter replied with obvious disdain. "Then you should understand this warning," Alana continued. "You have watched us from a distance for 60 years. You have seen our history, our wars, the terrible things we have done to each other. You know what we are capable of when we are angry, when we are afraid, when someone threatens what we love." She took a step forward, and though she was tiny compared to the towering alien, she did not seem small in that moment. "I am asking you, with everything I have, do not do this. Turn your ships around and go home. Leave us alone, and we will leave you alone. That is the only offer I can make, and I am begging you to accept it." The Arbiter's form flickered with what Elena recognized as amusement. "You threaten us, little human. Do you have any idea who you are speaking to? We have crushed rebellions from species far older and more powerful than yours. We have ended civilizations that dared to defy us. What could your kind possibly do that would make us afraid?" Alana's expression did not change, but something dark moved behind her eyes. "You say you have studied us, but I do not think you understand what you have seen. We did not become the dominant species on our planet through peace and cooperation. We killed everything that threatened us, and when we ran out of predators, we started killing each other. We have been at war for our entire existence, and we have become very, very good at it." She paused, letting her words sink in. "If you come for our colonies, if you try to cage us on our homeworld, if you harm a single human child, you will learn something that no other species in this galaxy has ever had to learn." "And what is that?" the Arbiter asked, its tone dripping with contempt. "You will learn why nothing on Earth ever successfully hunted us," Elena replied. "You will learn what happens when you wake the sleeping dog. And I promise you, when the lesson is over, you will wish you had listened to my warning." The Arbiter stared at her for a long moment, then made that cold laughing sound again. "Your warning has been noted and recorded, human speaker. It will be archived with all the other empty threats from doomed species. The adjudication fleet will depart for your colony on Proxima within the hour. I suggest you use that time to pray to whatever gods your kind believes in." The alien turned and left the chamber without another word, its crystalline body catching the light as it moved. Elena stood alone in the silence that followed, her hands still clasped behind her back. She had done everything she could to prevent what was coming, and it had not been enough. She activated her communication device and spoke a single sentence to the waiting human fleet. They did not listen. "Activate Protocol Lighthouse and inform all colonies that diplomatic options have been exhausted." In ships scattered across human space, men and women received this message and understood exactly what it meant. The hope for peace was gone, and now humanity would have to do what it had always done when backed into a corner. They would fight, and they would make their enemies regret ever finding them among the stars. The Arbiter's fleet set course for New Helsinki, confident in their power and certain of their victory. They had no idea that they were about to face something the galaxy had never seen before. They were about to face the wrath of humanity unleashed.